Welcome back to another video on Microsoft Access. Today is going to be pretty fun. I love transforming data, and that's what the topic of this particular video is about, is how to transform data that you get from users that may be malformed. It might not be capitalized right, it might have phone number not correctly formatted. So what we want to do is go over a few of those things that will help you to actually transform that data into something that is actually useful. So what we want to do here is go ahead and open our Access database. I have two tables here, and if we open, I made a copy of this table here, but this table has a lot of messy data. I would just call it messy data. And with all this messy data in here, we're going to be able to have a good time in looking how to clean up the data and making it look quite a bit better than it currently is. So let's get into it. First thing we want to do is we want to look at the possibility that there might be duplications in this data and possibly get rid of those duplications. So let's look and see if they possibly have more companies in here than what they should have. Maybe 2 or 3 entries of the same company. So let's start with that. And I'm going to close that table. And I'm going to go up here to create. And I'm going to go to my query wizard here, because the query wizard has a procedure that helps you to build what they call a duplicates query, to let you look and see what information is duplicated. And you get to define all of the parameters for the duplication. So I'm going to click on Find Duplicates, and I'm going to say that we're going to do it out of a copy of the lead list table. And going forward, what I want to do is look at company name as my potential duplicate value. And then I'm going to click Next. Now, with the company name out of this list, I'm just going to push over all the rest of the fields. And then I'm going to click Next. That way I can look at my duplicates and figure out if I really want to get rid of one of the records, or if I want to just live with it the way it is. So when I click on Finish, it has all kinds of duplicated information here. So Divas Corporation, same company number, same potential dollar amount potential there, same address, San Diego, and everything. Oh man, it's just a mess as I scoop all the way over here, pretty much all the way across. It's the same issue. Now, the value add about this is that you can then decide, I'm going to remove one of these, and you can remove that record and it'll remove in the table, because your query is an updatable query. And we'll talk more about updatable queries as time goes on. But so I can hit that, and I can say, we're about to delete a record, and I'll say yes. Now, if I were to then refresh this data, for example, I go here to Home and refresh this data. Notice Diva goes away because now it does not have another duplicate along with that record. Now, it looks like A&A Corp, these two records, potentially are duplicated, but no, it looks like we may have two A&A Corps. The company numbers are different, the address is different, so it appears as though that duplicate record, even though the corporate name is the same, that duplicate record is not actually the same company. Well, what that means is that maybe I ought to include the company number in my duplicate list. If that's the case, then let's go ahead and close that. I'm going to delete this one that I've made, and I'm going to recreate it with the query wizard, and I'm going to find duplicates. So we're going through this a second time, and I'm going to do copy of lead list here, and I'm going to include company name and the company number in my list of duplicate values. So now what it'll do is it will look for duplicates where both of those items are the same. And in doing that, I'm going to take and include the rest of the fields. And when I'm finished, it'll give me Oh, it dropped the A and A Corp completely out of there because the company numbers were different. So you can look at your data, and with a duplicates query, you can identify and remove those duplicates in one in one query. So let's look at other things. Okay, other things. Let's look at. I want to look at this figure number 12 here. If I look at design view, what I want to do here is I want to find records that the value is null in the dollar potential. In other words, nobody filled in the dollar potential. Well, that's supposed to be a number. So I'm going to say if there's no value in dollar potential, I'm going to update it to 0. And notice I'm using an update query. So if I run this, it says 115 rows don't have values in them. So those rows are going to be replaced by 0. And I can click yes and ready to go. Now, there are times when the value in the field is not necessarily null, but it looks like it doesn't have any values in it. Well, you can have a value that's put in a record, and the person says, well, I didn't mean to put that in, so they'll backspace it out, and then they'll go on to the next field because maybe they started putting a value in address 2 or some other place that normally is blank, but decided not to. Well, once they put a value in there, it's not null anymore. Null means there's never been a value in. And so when it's backspaced, it looks like it has nothing in there, but it actually does. So let's go ahead and look at the possibility of a text field. Here's a text field called segment. And here what we want to do is look at this is a double quote here, or it is null. So we're going to check for 2 different conditions. So we're going to check for nothing ever having been in the field, or we're going to check for somebody backspacing it. So literally it would be 2 quotes right smack together that don't have anything in between. So we're looking for nothing in the field, but it had existed before, so it's not as null anymore. So if we do that and review that, we're going to find that we have, as soon as it gives me a number, 11,000 segment values that are going to get caught in that. And if I go back to design view, I'm going to put in other into that segment value to replace the blank field that is there. So when I run this, I'm going to update 11,104 rows, and I'm going to go ahead and click yes. Now, those 11,000 rows, if I look at copy of lead list here, and scroll over here to segment here, oops, I looked at copy, and the other, that's the table it was updating here. And so now it's got other every time there was a blank here before. So we can look at my copy of the table and see that it used to be blank, and now it has other in it. Okay, so nifty little tool there. Okay, so let's close that. Okay, now what happens if you have to put 2 fields together? Like you've got a first and last name, for example. Let's look at number 14 here, and I've designed a little one here. And in 14, I want to put the type field and the code field together. So I have type in brackets, and I have the ampersand and code in brackets. Now remember, code and type in brackets means that it's looking for a field up here with the name, type, and code. That's the way you distinguish. Sometimes it'll try to take it as text, so it'll put type ampersand code, so it'll type in the words type code. Let's go take a look at what this one does. It's going to update a field called my test. And so if we look at lead list and we look over here at a field called my test is completely blank. So I'm going to close this, and then we'll look at what that field is going to look like. Okay. And then let's go ahead and run this. Run out there. Going to update 24,884 rows. And when we look at the table over here in There's type here. There's code here. And now we have my type, my test field being type, which is DB, the database object, and here's the code for it. Now that might not look all that elegant. It might actually be better if we had some sort of character in between these two so we could see which one was the type and which one was the code. So I'm going to go ahead and save that layout here, and I went ahead and panned the next one here to show you what happens then if we take and put an ampersand in between here. Actually, it's a colon, and we put that in between there. So I have ampersand, quote, colon, and quote, ampersand and code. So all I've done is added a quote around a colon character so that I'd have type colon code. And if I run this one, you'll see that it'll update those same 24,884 rows. And I'll say yes there. And then let's go look at our lead list and look at that field now. And over here, it has now a colon in between type and code. So you can modify your data in a lot of different ways. So what I'd like to show you next then is, what happens if your data is so messed up that somebody is, putting in lowercase characters for addresses, lowercase characters for the city. This happens a lot when I've created databases that go out and they look for data in a like the Google ISBN database. And if you go to the Google ISBN data, you don't really know what you're going to get back any more than what the person happened to put in. And since you don't really have any good controls over the data quality there, you can get situations like these lowercase or all uppercase or anything in between. So let's go ahead and look at what happens when we try work on changing case. And I think that one's here in number 19 with our string conversion. String conversion here. Now, string conversion, here what we're going to do is we're going to take the address field. So we're going to do an update query here. And we're going to update this field address. And we're going to convert this string to the string conversion for the address field type 3. Now, there's 3 types of string conversions. The first type of string conversion is to make it all uppercase. The second type is, you can probably guess this, all lowercase. While 3 is what they call proper case. So it'll take the first character of each word and put them all in uppercase for just the first character. So it'll look for the first character, it'll look for a character actually after a space, and then update it. So let's take a look at this. Now remember, we're looking at this address field. This is my copy, so it won't be updated, but we'll look at lead list here in a moment after we go look at this. And we click run here, 24,000 rows again. And then now let's look at lead list here and see what the address is. Oh, nice. Okay, our address looks like that compared to the lowercase that you see there. Corrected, uppercase in every first word. Not corrected, lowercase in all those first words. Okay. Now another issue that comes up is that sometimes there's just extra characters everywhere. You just love to throttle some people that love to put a space at the end of a particular field. And so when you're in IT, a lot of times you'll need to just trim off the extra spaces so that maybe you've got a phone number that you need to put the area code in parentheses and the next piece with a space in front of it and then a dash between the first 3 numbers and the last 4 numbers. So you want to format it like that, but some yahoo put a space in a wrong place, an extra space or something. So what we're going to do is we're going to show the trim function here. And I've used this trim function in more ways than I could count. In this case, we're going to use the trim function on the state field. And so what we've got here is the state field here. And what have we got? It looks like we have a space in front of, in fact, more than one space in front of the actual characters, some in back as well. Okay, so this is the way it looks in my copy. Let's see the way it looks after we trim it with the trim function. So let's go ahead and I'll hit design here and run it. And we're going to modify all 24,884 rows in the table. And then when we go back here and look at list here, well, we can see right off that it's better than before because it's up to the left margin there. And when we click on this first one, we see that Access has effectively trimmed the extra spaces in the front and in the back of the state field. Pretty cool, pretty cool. So we'll close that. And now I'm going to close that one. And what we want to do, let's get a replace function. A replace function is kind of unique. Here we have a situation where the address, the owner of the business decided that they didn't want to keep the abbreviation BLVD for Boulevard. So we want to find all instances of BLVD and put in the word Boulevard. So let's go do that. So I canned it already here, so I wouldn't have to write it right in front of you, but here's the way it would look. So I'm going to use the replace function. I'm going to look in the field called address for the text Boulevard and replace it with Boulevard. Okay. Now, let's see how this works. Now, let lead list here. We've already changed something. Now, look at this very close. We've already changed it to uppercase. I haven't tested this yet, but let's see if it finds both the uppercase and lowercase versions of BLVD and changes it to Boulevard. It might not find the ones that are, the B is uppercase. So let's go check and see that. And I'm going to run it. It says it's going to update that many rows. And let's go look at our data, okay? Now let me close this and reopen it so I know that it's good and fresh. So I want to find in here, so I'm going to go find in this field BOULEVARD and find next. And okay, it was not found. So let's go find BLVD, see if find next. Search records not found. Well, oh, because I've got it set to the whole field. Let's go do any part of field, okay? And we'll start that over. Now, you'll make a million mistakes like that all the time. I'm sure of it, because you simply, you can't remember all these little details all the time, but just don't be afraid to make mistakes. Make sure you've got copies of the data. Make sure you've got backups when you're messing with your data, and you can restore to the backup and then go forward. So, okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and stay on address, and I'm going to look to see if it changed all my BLVDs. See that none of those are there. And I want to go find it, and there are none there. So it did ignore the case. It did ignore the case in this query here. So even though it said lowercase b LVD, it found all those and replaced it with Boulevard the way we typed it. So some of them are real case sensitive, others are not. And I like to check like that sometimes before it. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll go and put something over here like this, and I'll make it test and then paste that in. And I'll change this instead to a select query so I can test what this would look like over here before actually doing anything. And that allows me to see what the change is really going to be before I actually change the data in the field here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close this one. And let's go to one of my absolute favorites. My absolute favorite is the left, middle, and right string. I use this so much, it's just amazing. And here they're going to combine it. Here we're going to combine it a in a concatenation query, and we're going to mess with the phone number. So we're going to fill up the my test field. We're going to overwrite what we put in the my test field before, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to put a paren, open paren there, ampersand, left of the telephone number, the first three characters. So we're going to get that area code. Okay. So we're going to put open paren. This left string gets the area code, ampersand, close paren. Okay. Now they're not putting space in here. Let's put a space in here just to make it a little bit more friendly. Okay. So I put in a quote mark, space, and a closing quote mark, and the ampersand to concatenate it to the next part of the field. And then mid-string, I want the fourth character in. I already did the first three characters over here. So now I want the fourth character, but I'm going to get that prefix, and I'm going to take those three characters of the prefix. Then I'm going to add a dash, and then I'm going to take the right part of that phone number and take those four characters. So here we've used the left string, the mid string, and the right string all in the same query here, and it will work just as slick as a whistle. So let me go ahead and save this, and let's go run it. And where we had data over here in the my test, we had no data here at all in the copy. Now in the lead list in my test, we're going to have, look at that beautiful thing. 146 area code, the prefix, and the last four digits of the number. Now, if you happen to have spaces in front or in back of that, you could also wrap this whole thing in a term function so that when you actually take those number of characters, it doesn't start counting the space that's accidentally in there at the end or at the beginning. So sometimes you may have to trim, and the way to do that would be to put the trim function around phone here and here and here. But you can embed the trim function inside the right string, mid string, or left string function too. In fact, you can embed a lot of these functions and formulas all the way through. Okay, so that's the basics on transforming data. It'll give you some ideas that you can go play with if you want to see all of the items that you can do in a particular function. If you come up here to design and you go to the builder, down here you've got functions here, and I go to built-in functions, and here you can see all the types, and if you leave it on all, you can see all of the different things. And what happens is if you click on it, it shows you the syntax for it. And once it shows you the syntax, if you click on that, it'll take you to a website on Microsoft.com that will give you definitions of all of these items in here so that you can get familiar with the function you might want to use, and then put it in your queries or your reports or your forms so that you can manipulate the data as you need to do. So thanks for joining me today. I really had enjoyed giving you this information. I hope that you will subscribe to the channel. That benefits me, and it also benefits you by letting you know when the next video comes out. And we'll look forward to seeing you again. Thanks.